Welcome back to This Week in Events, recorded Friday, 28th of November. I'm Bob Tuvey, and discussing the news with me this week is Paul Richardson and Paul Cook.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So how are you gentlemen on this fine Friday?
Well, I feel
Good.
that my strength has been lifted because I had an haircut earlier today. So obviously, it's all gone now. It's all disappeared. But every time I go for a haircut, I always feel a bit more kind of energized at the end of it. I don't know why, but I just do.
Right, so that would be you posting a picture of your new haircut on LinkedIn later today.
No, you'll be very lucky for that to happen.
Well, I'm just back from a lightning visit to London for the EVCOM Awards, which is interesting because it dovetails into something that we'll talk about later on. So at the moment, I'm fueled on caffeine and croissants. So I'm probably going to collapse and burn out in about another hour and a half when everything catches up with me. But yeah, pretty good, pretty good today. Pretty good. Good result at the awards as well.
For our listeners, what does EVCOM stand for?
I have no idea. I've never known anything other than EVCOM.
Right, okay. Maybe it was a previous eventier and they mixed with somebody. Is it one of those? One of the it's associations, right?
Yeah, well, EVCOM's it's loosely sense it's an association that provides benefits to its members, sort of strategic input and various other elements in terms of certain amount of lobbying and things. But we joined, like as an agency, we joined EVCOM earlier, sort of middle of the year, because there's people we want to talk to in the room. So we're just kind of feeling our way into the mechanics and behind it. But we helped. We were busy writing an award entry for one of the agencies in the EVCOM London Live Awards, which happened last night. Which is if I've got a very deep husky voice, it's probably because my voice is shot from shouting over. The music they insist at every award ceremony are playing over dinner when you're trying to talk to people around the table. You're squinting up, saying, "Pardon, what? Hey, can't hear you for this backing track." And the venues, I don't. It's one of those things. Play the music over the gaps and the bits where you're milling around and coming in and stuff, and those and the bits where you want people to converse and network. Dial it down or turn it off. Let people talk because that's part of the beauty of these events.
Yeah, I must admit, I've never understood that. You get people in a room and they're all getting to know each other, and you're just past that little early stage of like, oh, that's really interesting. And then suddenly you are competing as though you're in a bleeding nightclub. It's just nonsense. And also, why? Why is that the kind of staple that you just have to drown out your audience? It makes no sense at all. It just seems completely opposed to the purpose. You go there, you want a reception, have a few drinks, that's fine, but you can't talk to any because you can't hear them.
Yeah. Well, that leads really nicely into, well, we're talking about awards yet again. I mean, we did that about 2-3 episodes ago when it came up with the Eventex Awards. We talked about that. But Avisio's in conjunction with Event Industry News. So there's a new report about the transparency and the trust within the awards ecosystem, as it were. I think that's something you was quite interested in, Paul Richardson.
Yeah, I'd suggest everybody goes. I mean, again, you trust that it is a completely unbiased report, even though it's provided by people whose very existence depends on events and awards being successful. So a bit of my northern cynicism creeps in there. However, it's quite interesting because within all some of the highly positive, these are the best things since sliced bread, some really interesting elements in there, which I think starts to differentiate awards a little bit in terms of, I think, as you touched on, Bob, the credibility, transparency, and I've judged a number of awards over the years, and some give you marking criteria, some don't, some leave it open to your own interpretation. I judged a bunch of awards recently, a whole raft of entries, and the entries were quite. They were so markedly different. Some obviously looked like they'd been fired into an LLM and it spat out an award entry, and they pasted it into the award entry form, and it was lots of lovely words, very descriptive, free-flowing content, really florid, but said nothing. Because I again, maybe maybe these are indications of why I was a particular type at school, but I set up a marking scheme based on the criteria. So I got my little marking scheme in a spreadsheet, and as I went through the award entry, I scored it on all of the points that the organizer said that they wanted us to judge against. So I'd got a comparative marking scheme. So XYZ company got 5 votes, 5 points for this, but ABC company only got 3 because compared to XYZ, because that was my those were my benchmarks. That's how they fared, and it was quite interesting. We watched the results come out, and you sit there and think, oh yeah, these are the guys. And the shortlists are now, well, they've got no chance because that was just an LLM entry, and then it goes, and the winner is, blimey, what were my other judges thinking? And there is an element, and again, judges. I've never come across where judges are paid to judge awards. I don't know if that exists anywhere in our industry, but I think it's because you're relying on volunteers. It's how much time do the judges spend on the judging of the awards. So that kind of transparency, if you're entering awards and you can see, here's the score criteria, this is what we're looking for, you'll get more awards that address those criteria, which means it might be tighter, but then if you give the judges the ability, the information, and the time to be able to judge them correctly. I'm going back in. I may be misremembering this, or wrong, as we used to call it. I think it was the AEOs. Did they not used to have judging panels where the award entries came in and the judges met and discussed the award entries? So you had a panel of judges looking at something and saying, that's great. But I think this report flags up as we've lost things like that, and everybody's time poor at the moment, so you're relying on the goodwill of judges to do this. That kind of stuff starts to fray the edges of credibility a little bit. But this is a really interesting report, and there's some good bits you can look at in it and say, well, that makes sense. That's quite a strong proposition. That's obviously a flaw and a failing that needs to be addressed somewhere along the line. But again, if everybody modelled their awards on exactly the same thing, there'd be no differentiation in the awards. And we do have a lot of awards in this industry.
No, that's right. And I think to your point about comparative judging, we did a MPI Young Achievers Award back in 2010, actually, and 11. And basically we gave the judges, right, this is what we're looking for. This is where they should be hitting the marks. And we said how much they needed to weight on each of those sections so that they could mark it. So it was as straightforward as it could be. And we also gave the same criteria across to the entrants, so they would know that there's no point in me spending loads of time on really going into detail about how we did this element if that's not being scored so highly. So I think when you're doing these things, you need to be, if you want to do it well, my advice is that you need to be giving advice that's clear on both sides, not for the judges, but also for the entrants that come through. Because you wouldn't believe how many, well, you probably would actually, how many people write stuff which is completely not requested. It's like diabolical. It's okay, we didn't ask for any of that, and I can't give you marks. So when I was university lecturing, and students would come up and say, oh, well, I didn't do so well. I'd say, look, we tried to give you, we want to award you things, but we can't if you haven't actually done what's needed. So I think on both sides, you need that. The Uveso report was actually interesting in terms of in-person events are still obviously the strongest when it comes to awards, but they did also make the case that there are now more organizers that are taking on board the idea of, oh, we can have hybrid award events. And I think that's a good thing, because if you imagine that, you can stream out and you can get a virtual audience that's also able to participate and view these awards that are online that can't get there, then that magically means that your awards occasion has just grown so much, and you can reach those people that just can't get there. They can't get to London or New York or where it happens to be, but they still want to find out what's going on. They still want to take part of it. So I think that's if more people come on with that, that could be interesting for the future.
The thing,
Bob.
Sorry, Bob, you were going to say?
I was going to say, I like the idea that if the whole of the awards ceremony is live streamed, so people in remote locations can feel that they're taking part. You could have watch parties. You can get people together,
You do.
and you could all watch it together, and it's
Yeah.
almost like you can encourage that. So people are getting together in a face-to-face group and put it on a big screen, and you watch it all together. How exciting would that be?
Well,
Absolutely right, Bob.
Yeah, it's recent experience at awards, both right across the board. Man, we're immersed in the whole concept of awards, but there's times when some people can only afford, because of the price of tickets, let's say the two key directors go to the awards, but there's a team of 20 people that got them into that shortlist. And your idea, Bob, of why wouldn't the awards company give you the opportunity somehow to have an awards kit? Send them out a printed score chart that they can stick up in the office, and they can all get together and watch the awards, and something that ties that remote audience into a participation. And maybe you have the I mean, if you wanted to really push it, could you do the online virtual poll, so people can actually say, who do we think as remote people should have won this, the Grand Prix category or something like that, who came across best? But it would require, it's kind of making it a little bit more of a thought through strategic event, as opposed to it just being let's get bums on seats, let's rinse them for a couple of £100 a ticket or a couple of £1,000 a table, stick a comedian on, and then give them a gong, and that's a revenue stream. It's like so many of these things. It's how that's a business model, but then how do you make your business model better than somebody else's? And I love that idea of people back at the office watching their hard work be rewarded.
What I love about that idea is you turn it into something that's inclusive, as opposed to it's only exclusive for the attendees who are there.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And these things, they work as well. We've done awards where we've had clusters of people in different European countries that have actually been not sure if they're going to be one of the winners. So, it depends how far advanced you want to go with these things, but everything is possible with the tech and the kind of design elements that we've got these days. My thinking is that the idea of just having in-person awards, and then we exclude everybody else, is kind of only halfway there. It really feels that it just could go on. But as to, the other Paul's point, it depends about your strategic thinking and what you want to do with these awards. And if they are just a kind of, right, it's a money generator. Now, just on that, which is a perfect segue into the issue that has been cropping up in terms of scammers, because there are scammers everywhere. And some people have been falling into the idea that they're giving money across to a credible awards organization, and not a bit of it. It's gone into the pockets of some dark recess that isn't there, but just to take your money. So when it comes to awards, I think both entrants and also sponsoring companies need to be really clear that they are actually giving money to the right people.
Yeah, because often you say, oh, well done, you've won an award. Just send us a large amount of money to claim your trophy, certificate, badge of achievement, whatever it is.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. I was talking about websites that look as though they are the original.
Also,
You know.
they're actually lifting all the look and
That's what I'm
feel.
saying.
Oh,
And with
okay.
all the AI stuff and the deep fakes and all of that, it is becoming more commonplace that these things are going on. So that's what I'm saying. You've got to check out all those weird kind of email addresses or other kind of giveaways.
I have to say, I've had phone calls from event organisers, some of the big trade shows that go on through the year, asking if I'm going to be there. The thing is, it comes across like a scam call,
Mm.
and it can be really difficult to know how to respond. Is this genuine or not? It's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And you'll see the email that I sent you yesterday, Bob, on that very subject of, well, we'd like to include you in our list of outstanding movers and shakers in this space. Just pay us €1,000 or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Which, you know, funny enough, we didn't
I
mind.
did a look up on that. I'm not going to mention it because it's just something to be wary of as opposed to a full out critique of what they're up to. But I looked up on Google, it gave me an AI response to it, give me a little summary. It's a pay to play publication rather than a legitimate business magazine with views and expert opinions, stating it's a money making scheme that generates revenue through paid features instead of independent journalism.
There you go.
So it's always worth just doing a little bit of research before you hit reply.
Mm.
Very good.
One last question I have on this. As regards to the trust and transparency, is that been dented in some way? Is there a little less confidence in some way? Because quite often, if you wish to be in the consideration for the award, you have to pay something.
Well, there's elements there that's quite interesting because there's a recent set of awards that a client of ours put themselves forward for, and uh, part of the consideration of shortlisting was that you had to be in attendance at the show, at the ceremony, which I kind of get because the last thing you want is half of the awards being presented to somebody because somebody couldn't make it tonight, and thank you very much. That's a real buzzkill for an award, even if it only happens a couple of times. So having significant number not there, but the pay to be considered, where do you stand with that? If I've put in an award and I've paid my entry fee for the award, does that mean I should be shortlisted, or is just that for me to get in? Does it pay for the judges? I think this is what they're referring to when they're talking about transparency, isn't it? It's what happens. What is the money I pay for my entry fee to go towards the awards at the end? So is that the contribution for the entry, or does that just disappear into a black hole somewhere, or does it pay for the judges to spend considerable time being meticulous about it, so they're actually focusing on what's done? I'd love to know, and that I think is part of that whole transparency debate.
Well, you could look at it from there's two sides to look at it. If you have paid for consideration and you win, that was a worthy investment. Well done, me. I made, spent wise money. But if you're a small business and you spent quite a lot of money for the consideration, but you lost, have you just wasted that money?
Yeah, but then, yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. We just don't know. I don't think, just going back on an earlier point, that most judges, certainly in the event sector, don't appear to be paid for anything. They may get a lunch or a dinner somewhere if there is a kind of in-person gathering of all of them. But other than that, I don't think necessarily that organizers are paying their judges for these things. Certainly, all the ones I've done haven't received a bean for anything. So yeah, I think it's kind of common that they don't. And then it does come down to, how seriously they are being objective and looking at these things. And it is also challenging because we all know people in the industry, right? So you can't help sometimes but be swayed by that. What I'm interested in is where what's bringing this issue of trust and transparency to the front? Why now? This has been going on for years. So what is the catalyst for this? Is there something that suddenly happened where kind of go, okay, we need to have a look at this?
Well, maybe it's become more important now because the financial side has been pushed so far, it's becoming more of a transaction than more of a worthy win. I don't know. It's difficult to actually pin it down to something, but if it's got to a point where enough people are now questioning the trust and the transparency, maybe it's the
Yeah.
reason why it's now becoming the thing to talk about, which we've talked about quite a few times.
Hmm. What do you think on asking for sponsorship on these awards, where there's a hefty price tag popped against you can sponsor I know the drinks on the table or I can't think of anything now, but they seem to come with really meaty tags, and I'm wondering again if that is have organizers priced some of that a little bit too far and are now having to find other ways of getting revenue in that. Maybe this is why we're getting some kickback, as you say, Bob, on the transaction idea.
Considering what people can pay for a table with 2 bottles of wine, I've heard figures like 400 quid. I mean, you're going to have a sponsor with deep pockets just to help reduce that cost.
There's a client shared with me the cost of sponsoring a category in one event industry award, and clearly rate card numbers, but over £5,000 to sponsor an award category. So that's for the fleeting moment where your logo is put against the award category, maybe on a website and some mail out. You get to stand on the stage and present the award and have your logo and a little mention. And I mean, to me, it does seem a little odd because the moment of glory is for the person who's won the award. Would the award category exist without the sponsor? Don't know. Clearly, it would because it brings people to the awards. It kind of seems like it's one of multiple revenue streams that award organisers are trying to utilise and looking for ways to do it. So, you pay a minimum fee to enter. You've got category sponsors. You've got table sponsors. You've got drinks reception sponsors. You've got, how far on to go? You've got your main headline sponsor. There's an awful lot of opportunity. You could monetize everything, couldn't you? Cloakroom sponsor.
My question is, if you're focused on the stage and what's happening there, and with people telling you who's won which award, or you've got a comedian on stage trying to get everybody excited, you're sitting at a table with your friends, you've got glasses of wine for those who do drink. Are you going to pay much notice to who the sponsor is? Are you going to look at their logo and go, oh, yes, I must remember to look this company up once I get home? If you can remember after you've had, X number of glasses. It could be just the fact that it's all becoming a transaction now.
I think, yeah, I don't remember sponsors so much. That's a terrible thing to say, isn't it? But if I've got a program and there's kind of like I can write down who the winners are and who came runners up, I think I tend to go in afterwards and have a look and see, all right, okay, they did really well because of this, that, and the other. So yeah, I don't know for sponsors. I think that might be a really interesting one.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Paul, because it's one that was brought up last night at the EVCOM Awards. Just in passing was, oh, right, who was it that won that one? Oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a little scorecard? And you could just then say, all right, well, they won that. Does it enhance participation within the awards and people paying attention to what's going off in the room? Because you're just scoring those people off. But then it also gives people that, as you say, that next step to go and have a look, maybe on. One of the nice things about the awards last night was when, I don't know, you guys have probably been to as many awards as I have, where you sit there and they say, and the winner is Bob Tuvey. Oh, right. Well done, Bob. Round of applause. Anybody know
Yeah,
what Bob did? Why did he win? Did anybody see
precisely.
anything? No idea. Oh, well done, Bob. Brilliant. No idea who you are or what you've done.
Yeah,
And last night they actually played some clips from some of the film that went. It was only short, but at least you
yeah.
had some sense of when it was sound or it was cinematography. They put it up on the big screens, a very impressive set. But you could see, oh yeah, right, okay, that the sound quality in that is making the whole room rumble. It has that. I can get.
Yeah.
They were good at that. So that had some balance to it. But it wouldn't be great to be able to go back and say these are the winners from yesterday, and these are the judges' comments
Yeah,
as to why
absolutely.
they won. I'm trying to think.
No, I
Where
love
did
that.
we see?
Yeah.
That might have been the AEO. That might have been the AEO Awards many moons ago when Alistair McGowan was hosting it, and he'd say, "Oh, and they won." And the judges' comments were, "This is an award that had this, and they did this, and they did this, and this." So like 3 or 4 points for each award winner.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
could go, right, not my sector, not my field, so I've no idea who they are, but
Yeah.
I now know why they won, which
And I
that was
think
quite.
that is brilliant. PR for whoever these people are, even the finalists that get in, because then you've got a sense of what they were doing. If you go to an awards and you're kind of like, and the best conference center is, okay, thank you very much. They're all on stage, they're all clapping. There's 20 of them on stage. That's brilliant. And they're all doing this great work. But why? What was it about them
Yeah,
that drew people out? And to your
yeah,
point on having a kind of card and where people are and kind of kind of guessing who's going to win, well, you can take that idea and put it into your virtual watch parties. So you can have people that are separate, maybe to the main venue, but they can still participate. So we've got all sorts of ways that we can help ramp up awards if we want. We could talk about this all day,
yeah.
Bob, but I think you
I
want us
think
to
we
move
could
on soon.
actually, and it's going to rumble on into January,
I
February,
think,
March. It's just going to keep going.
yeah, I think we should launch the EPN awards and show them out.
Yeah.
We'll show them how it's done, shall we?
I think we should.
Absolutely.
I'm not quite sure what we're awarding. What the categories? Just give me
We'll
one
make it up.
category, Paul.
We'll do whatever people do, Bob. We'll just make it up. We'll make categories up.
Oh, okay.
The best newcomer from the train journey that went
Yeah.
on for 3 days award goes to.
Tallest person in the events industry award goes to.
Maybe it should be the oldest person. Maybe, I don't know.
Steady.
Well, obviously it's not us.
And I think I already
Right, moving along
pre-qualify
then,
for
Bob.
that one.
Yeah, EPN Awards. I'll give that some thought. Actually, if any listener wishes to come up with some suggestions, do let me know. I think it'd be cool. But anyway, let's wrap that up.
Just one last thing on that one.
Yes,
the only thing I would say is I would heartily recommend anybody that enters awards or organises awards, just go and have a read. Just go and see the bits it might shine a light on. It's worth just taking 10 minutes and a cup of coffee out to get the gist. Because you don't see too much interrogation of award ceremonies. You hear comments and you see articles and things, but this is kind of one of the first things that I've seen that's got a little bit of meat to it. So I think it's well worth a go, well worth a read.
Before we move on to the next story, I would like to say a big thank you to our fabulous patron, Vivid Ink PR. You can find out more about them at the end of this episode. Paul Cook, you were at IBTM. How was your experience? Maybe compare this year's experience to last year's? How was it?
Well, Bob, that's such an all-embracing question. IBTM World, yes, took place was it last week? Yeah, it was last week, actually. And I've been going to IBTM World in its previous guises as well for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, I guess, when it was the EIBTM before it became IBTM World. And this year was a little different, only in as much as IBTM have now had a little bit of a kind of brand refresh, I think, because they've gone from their previous colors and now they are black. So the color that they're using is black, and they had a new kind of strapline this year, which was meet the moment, it said. Previous years they've had other things going on, but that was kind of interesting. I didn't really understand, if I'm honest, what that means. Maybe we can discuss that in a minute. But they did this brand. I've seen no announcements about why it's been done or if it's supposed to be a soft thing or not. Just don't know. They had some new stuff going on this year. They had a Ignite startup area, which was all about getting kind of, well, startups in the name, with kind of investors and other people that might be interested in their products to come, and they made a bit of a fuss about that in some PR leading up to the show. There was a couple of announcements. Now, how that actually worked in reality, some feedback that I had was that the startups were not in the appointments diary, so people couldn't arrange to go and see them at a certain time. They were people that were going to go and see them would be those that kind of passed by and said, "Oh, well, maybe I'll come back to you a bit later on." I think that was a little bit of a kind of a bit of a fail, if I'm honest. Because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you put the startups in this area where they're all together and make, encourage other buyers, not just hosted buyers, but visitor buyers and other people to just be able to go and see them and find out what's going on, because don't we need to know what's coming around the corner? So you got these startups that are happy to be there for like 3 days, but they're not in the main diary. So unless they've done an awful lot of promotion themselves on an individual basis to bring people to their little kind of stand, they're only going to get people that pass by. Or maybe there was a separate idea that they would be on stage and they would be able to pitch, and maybe that's really their key reason for being there. But again, somebody would need to be saying this is what's going on at this particular time. So I think the initiative is great in terms of, yeah, we want to be behind startups, but maybe it needs a little bit more fleshing out development for future editions. One thing I did notice as well is in talking to some of the exhibitors, they hadn't been able to promote their stand events in part of the main program. So that was interesting. In previous years, they'd go in the daily newspaper and you would have details of, all right, this is going on at this stand. And I know that the Meetings and Events Support Association, they ran something in the region of 25 little campfires, 20-minute slots, but they couldn't actually promote any of that on the IBTM website or through the app or through the program. And that was also the same for other associations that had been there. So I think that could be a missed opportunity, or maybe that's a deliberate one on part of IBTM. I don't know. I don't know what their feeling with content is, because it's just not clear. I mean, you can push everybody towards your main stages and the key things that are going on, and that's great. But you've got your exhibitors that you're looking after, and they're going to have events that they want to do themselves. Why not put them in the program? I just really don't understand that. So
it's not based on anything other than supposition, but the sense there to me is, if you think about the pieces of content on stage, there is a drift now towards people who are presenting or who may be comparing, and I've seen that just come out now in some recent emails. There is a charge for people to do that. So if I'm paying the organizer X to host a panel session, so I get myself and my brand on the stage for that panel session, and then I see that the organizer is promoting exhibitors doing stuff on their stand, then I might be slightly miffed that I've paid for this opportunity, and that's possibly denuding my audience a little. And shouldn't their shouldn't they have to pay to be on the main stages rather than doing their own thing on their own stand? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that might be one of the reasons why some of these things might happen, and why, if you're an official piece of the content, you go in the official program, but then you have all of this sort of stuff going on in the background. We've worked with clients who've done both.
Yeah,
I think it will all come down to the economic model of a show, in terms of where the revenue opportunities are. Because again, if I'd sponsored the Bob Tuvey stage, and I suddenly found that the two Pauls were running a seminar that may be very similar on somewhere on their stand in the show, I might be a little miffed if somebody spent all that money.
yeah, I think you're on the revenue side. It's kind of interesting because they did this year they had a lounge area where you could go if you'd paid, I don't know, the €100 to get access to it. So you could get behind this kind of, in this lovely little comfy seating area, and you could stay there. I'm not quite sure what it had in it. Maybe there were some refreshments, but again, the decision by IBTM had been, okay, we're not going to fill this with traditional exhibitors, but we're going to make this a lounge, and we're going to charge people for it. So it'll be interesting to see whether they make that bigger next year, whether they drop it, because like you say, there's always considerations on revenue going on, and that kind of leads to think, what do people think trade shows are these days? Because it seemed to be that they used to be very much buyer, seller, meet, market. That's it. And then content came along, and I think content kind of confused people. What are we now kind of wanting all of these business people to meet and have all these lovely meetings, and that's what our trade show stands for? Or are we now an educational provider? And then if you start doing that and you start grabbing people in with your multiple sessions, like 80 sessions over the 3 days and specific vertical tracks, that's all great. But then you decide, actually, no, we're not really interested in that so much. We want to go back to bringing people together. I think you can leave people a little confused. And I think that's probably where my head is right now. I'm not quite sure what the positioning of that, of this year's show was.
Can we go just back a little bit to the fireside chats that some of the exhibitors were having? Was it a point blank refusal to list them on the IBTM calendar? Or was it you have to pay a lot of money to be featured, which would then be prohibitive for the exhibitors to be listed?
I think it was just you couldn't do it. And also, even if you could and you had to pay for it, it was feeling like it could be a bit of a flap. And it's just really interesting, isn't it? If the idea now is that you are asking people to pay to moderate sessions on the main stage, I think that's so dangerous on so many levels that you can really end up pushing your audience further away. Because if you're paying there to moderate, where's the qualifications? It's a whole load of skills in terms of being able to moderate panels. And if some of these shows are going down the way of we have to have panels because they're really interesting, and we all know that they're plainly not at times, unless you put a lot of preparation and thought into what you're doing. Yeah, it could be dangerous. So it could be like, okay, you could get rid of your audience just by having somebody that decides to go too far with talking about what their company's doing and what they're up to.
Oh, sorry, I've got a thought in my head. I can't get rid of it, so I've got to go back a little bit again. With regard to the fireside chats and not getting them listed, how far in advance were exhibitors made aware that IBTM won't do that, won't list it? And I have a follow-up question to that. Okay.
I don't know.
Because we all know that exhibitors do have a tendency not to tell anybody that they're going. that there's a failure of communication with their audience to say, in 1 month's time, I will be exhibiting at a particular trade show. Now, so my question is it the show's responsibility to make sure that the exhibitor gets lots of exposure, including the fireside chats, or is the onus on the exhibitor to actually tell people that they're going to be going there and this is the program of events on our exhibit space?
I think it's both. I think both parties, I don't think you can say one or the other. I think both have to, the show organizer, whoever that happens to be, has to be promoting their show to obviously attract people to come through the doors, but also to highlight who's already there and who's on the sponsor list and all of those kind of good things. But if the individual exhibitors does nothing to actually say to people, look, we're going to be there and we're going to show you this stuff and we're going to do this, that, and the other, then yeah, I think if they don't get the kind of people that they thought they were going to get, that's down to them. I mean, when we go to exhibit at trade shows, we'll work out a campaign of what's going to be going on and what we want to do and what we want to say and how we're going to use that particular trade show point as part of the ongoing development of the product. So it's not we went, nobody came, that's it, and that's it. That's rubbish. We can't be doing that. You've got to know where you're going. And if you do know where you're going and what your purpose is, then you are going to, as an exhibitor, you're going to have a much better experience and not be saying, well, the organizer didn't tell anybody and that's why we've got no one. So for me, it's always going to be both. It's like, you're going to that show, you're spending money on it as an exhibitor, then work out, you've just decided why you're going, then it's down to you to capitalize on that. I saw, Paul, you were nodding your head. I know our listeners can't see that because it's audio for them, but
there's a lot of stuff that resonates with that, and it kind of goes back to a point you made earlier on, which I kind of pinged with me, is who, and I know I can hear a certain publisher's voice in my head saying, you can't just come to a show and expect visitors to turn up. You have to market the show and yourself as an exhibitor. I partly say the whole point of an organizer is to bring people into the room. I thought that was the point. If I'm marketing to people I already know to bring them to the show, then aren't I doing the organizer's job for him? I'm going to the show to meet people who I don't know. That's the point of exhibiting. You are there to see people who don't know, if you go back to old school stuff, 3 reasons to go: new product to existing market, existing product into a new market, or some element of corporate hospitality and entertainment. Those are the 3 main drivers. Well, if you're going into a new market, you aren't going to know people to invite to the show. So I'm exhibiting at a show. I want to meet some new customers. I want fresh meat. I don't want to be inviting my customers or my prospects that I may also be talking to in another channel coming to the show. I want to see fresh people. That's whatever the rationale may be. And I hear, I don't want to bring my customers into an exhibition because they'll see my competitors. Well, if you're that fragile and you're that unsure of your relationship with your customer, then you've got more problems than just coming to a show. But the point remains that whose responsibility is to get bums on seats? If it's a joint responsibility, then just giving somebody a whole bunch of social media assets and a couple of logos to stick on your email footer, that's probably not helping. The organizers probably need to engage with the exhibitors more on that. But that's part of what we talked about earlier on in a conversation earlier about the 365 life cycle of a show. In terms of it, if you're engaging with the exhibitors, they're working with the organizer over 365. There's an element of ownership there, even if it's only perceived ownership, that we all have the same common end. A full show with lots of people are going to buy. And to pick up your other point is, if you then fill that show with content, how many of those visitors wander around the show, spend time engaging with the exhibitors rather than looking at the phone going, oh, I've just got a brain don't meet over there now, so I'll come back to you, and you never see them again. Or I've got to listen to Bob Tuvey talk about XYZ on this stage. So they go off and they listen to that. And even with the best intent, I will come back. Yeah. When we're at trade shows, it's the serendipity stuff. You get grabbed by something else attracts your attention. You find something interesting to go and look at, and you may not go back. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Who has that accountability?
I'd like to add on to your little list that you just gave. There are other reasons for going. For example, it might be the only time that all of the company can be in the same room at the same time. It might be the only time that your audience is in the same room as you at the same time. It could actually
Now that's logistics. That's not the reason for going. Because why? If you're going because all your customers are in there, what are you going to see those customers with? Okay, are you going to take them a new product? Are you going for the corporate entertaining bit? Are you going to put something in there that brings your customers in? We back in the day when I was client side, we used to do the shows in Stavanger and Aberdeen offshore. OTC, wasn't OTC Houston, because obviously that was in Houston. It was the equivalent in European oil field industry. But the whole world flew into Aberdeen for those shows. So we took hotel rooms. We had a big stand. The stand was essentially basically a hospitality lounge, but it was ours. So we invited everybody to come in. So you could see, quite rightly, Bob, you could see people there who you wouldn't see. To pay for our technical sales guys to go out and visit all those people cost a fortune. All the flights all around the world. Whereas you stick them in a hotel in Aberdeen for that show, everybody flew in to see what was there because it was the nucleus of the industry. And therefore, what did you do when you got them in there? You put them on a stand. You gave them hospitality, food, drink, whatever you needed to have those conversations. And you pre-booked meetings. I mean, back in the good old days, you used to send them out something in the mail. You post something out and say, come and see us here's your VIP pass to come into our exclusive lounge. Back in the good old days when you used to have 2 double-deck stands, you go on a stand, and to get up that secret staircase, you had to be somebody important to go up there and get the free food and drink. But that's using it for that purpose, and that's what I mean. But it would be in that corporate hospitality, and it's that bit of you're using it as a gathering place for a purpose. So that's that exists. That did happen. I don't know whether people are prepared to invest that kind of budget on shows anymore. I'm sure some of them must. And I did see at Conflicts last year or the year before, Immersive AV had a double-deck stand, and I was down there with Bethany, and she didn't understand why I stopped and my jaw hit the floor, because that's the first double-deck stand I've seen for years, definitely since the pandemic in a show. I go, wow, it wasn't huge, but there was a staircase, and there was the secret room upstairs where you could be allowed in, and that I just wow, somebody's brought this back. Brilliant.
If you want to make someone feel special, that's got to be the way you do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Any last thoughts, guys? Brief last thoughts.
No.
No. Oh, okay. Fine. Then we'll move on to.
Just only that there's so much more that could be done. And reach out to. I'm sure organisers do, but reach out beyond your own confines and your own walls, and talk to people who. Do they talk to the exhibitors and say, "Hey guys, what do you want to do?" Do they survey? Do they research? I'm sure they do. I'm sure they'll all come on and tell us, and we'll get flamed by organisers saying, "We do all of this. How dare you tell us or ask us?" But don't see evidence.
That'd be good though, wouldn't it? That would be really good, because then it would help, illuminate our understanding. But because we don't have any kind of sense of that, apart from a kind of final survey that's done at the end of the year, it just seems more communication, guys, more trade shows in general. I think there are some that do it fairly well, that are kind of in front of their audience for a lot of the year, but some are just not so hot. And if you think that you can just come up and be all over somebody, and then as soon as they're about to leave, then just say, right, are you going to sign up for the next show based on the fact that you've got no knowledge of who's come, because the salespeople are too early. Maybe they're in day 2 or even day 1 mode when they're asking you to sign up again. I'm not really thinking of the customer. Yeah, Paul.
I can't see the logic in coming along at 11 o'clock in the morning on the first day saying, I hope it's going well.
What
Do
is
you
that
want to
about?
book up for next year?
I claim the trophy for the pre-book award for audacity. Before the show had started, 2 days before the show had started, we got a phone call from the rebook team saying, "Hi, are you going to book for next year?" Haven't had this year yet. Which
Wow, brilliant.
I've been tongue in cheek. I've fired a note over to the organisers and said, WTF is this? And they said,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's our new." And tongue in cheek, they replied and said, "Oh, it's our new sales technique. It's called pre-book. So you book next year's before you started this one." And I don't know if there's over enthusiasm on the part of the rebooking company, but you kind of sit and think, am I a valued exhibitor or am I just revenue? Am I seen as an active? And I know the organizer well, so I would think probably more the former than the latter. But it's just one of the bits makes you sit back and think. It just feels like you're in part of a mincing machine.
My last thought is, if you're going to go to a show, an exhibition, don't rely on the organizer to tell people. Don't rely on anybody else to say that you're going. Do it yourself. Get the word out. Generate interest. If the organizer does it, that means there's even more attention coming your way. But if they don't, at least you made the effort, and you don't want to be regretting it, a week after when nothing's worked for you, because you'll then start wondering, why on earth did I spend all that money? So you've got to put your own investment in of time as well as money on it.
I mean, it works. I can testify to that, having just done a show where we threw the kitchen sink at the pre, during, and post-show marketing, and it works. But it works when you've got a targeted audience, and you kind of sit and think, well, after this campaign's run, how many people did it bring to the stand? Or could we have run that and done something differently without having the cost of a stand, the space, the stand, the hotels? The organizer's got to provide something that gives you that fizz apart from the room to hold it in.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a cynic's view. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. And we'll wrap up that story. I want to move on to, we have to mention it. Don't really want to, but we kind of have to, because it's the budget. Let's not spend too much time on that. So there was a lot to it. I think maybe the highlights is the minimum wage. The thing I think most event organisers and also delegates will be interested in was the freeze. This is freeze on train fares, I believe. There are not going to be any increases next year. And of course, fully funded under 25 apprenticeships for small to medium enterprises.
Are you saying there's no increases on rail fares next year? Is that what we're saying?
Maybe I should
the government involve?
Let me just double check that. I'm sure there is.
I mean, rail fares are one of those things that year on year just go up like astronomical amounts regardless. I mean, the price of trying to get a rail journey before 9 o'clock in the morning is just off the scale. It's ridiculous. And then, of course, you could take your car, but that's probably not so helpful when there's so many cars on the road anyway. So I don't know.
Well, just looked up on the Treasury website. Rail fares frozen for the first time in 30 years in historic intervention to deliver real savings for millions of consumers.
Right. Okay.
And that's from the Department of Transport, HM Treasury, published 23rd of November 2025. So we can see that maybe you get a bit more confidence in delegates going outside of the M25 if they feel that there's not going to be any increase in public transport, well, train fares anyway.
Well,
it's wouldn't it be nice to see them coming down? I mean, sorry if that's a utopian rose-tinted spectacle view, but we're trying to get cars off the road. If you go into London in a car, you get thumped with the ULEZ tariff, which I have now got to pay my slapped wrist for daring to go to XL in my car because I couldn't get my stand to XL any other way. So I missed the payment. So I've now got that's one less meal my family will be able to eat this week while I pay that fine. But it's one of those things. There are 3 of us coming down to the show plus a small stand. But even if it just been the 3 of us in the car is a fraction of the cost of 3 of us on the train to get there in time for the show. And as you said, Paul, quite rightly, unless we were to travel the day before an off-peak time and come back the day after, and it's part of how much. If you think trade shows are a vital engine of commerce in the country, and we believe that, and as we work in the industry and there's organisations talking to government about this, so we know it's true. We've got crippling transport costs. We've got lovely. We were in this one for Jeremy Reese. We were in XL's car park for literally 2 hours while we loaded up the stand, put it up, went down, and we got the full day's £25 parking fee. Yeah, it's great. Cheers for that. And you just feel that you're being rinsed at every step of the way as an exhibitor, and getting people off the roads onto trains, onto public transport. It's greener, it's more efficient. Last night and yesterday and today, because I was down to London for the awards last night, jumped on a train yesterday afternoon, did some work for 2 hours on the way down. That was great. Got to the hotel, out of the awards, back up at o'clock this morning to catch the 7 a.m. train, back working while I was on the way back, and I'm now in the office, and that felt great. It also didn't feel too bad because the rail fares were quite reasonable because it was mid-afternoon yesterday, early morning today. But that if I'd strayed outside those boundaries of that rail thing, all of a sudden, I mean, it becomes punitive. The cost, it doesn't just double; it goes up by multiples. So therefore,
does.
Yeah.
It would be nice if the fares came down, but at least they're not going up. But to add to the mix of public rail transport, don't forget we've got industrial action by the OMT, Saturday, 6th of December, 13th, 20th, and the 27th. So, yay, we don't have any price increases. Boo, the trains are going on strike again.
Yeah. And I don't know how you get around to that because they're private companies, right?
It's cross country, which I believe is they service about 100 stations. I don't know how much of effect it's going to have on the rail network as a whole, but I can see some major stations being knocked out or having difficulties providing services, which will then have a knock-on effect. And as we experienced from the tube strikes, all the trains will be in the wrong places on the Sunday. It won't be until mid-morning or late afternoon Monday when it's getting reasonably sensible again.
Yeah, it's probably that somebody needs to, not somebody, but a whole heap of people need to look at what's going on in transport, not only in this country, but in other countries. Because if we are serious about carbon pledges and everything else, then something needs to change. And it's not happening at the moment because rail is way too expensive for so many people. So they got all their cars on the road, but that's not satisfactory either. And if you are looking for people to reduce their emissions, it's not going to happen with those two things going on. And if you do want to expand business and all of those good things, there just needs to be something done. I mean, I've been to countries where basically you pay like so little in terms of money, and you can travel for miles. And I don't know what some transport systems in other countries are doing, but certainly in the UK, it just feels like it's not really caring that much, I think.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance of making it affordable, yet trying to be sustainable. Because as we know, there's now going to be a levy on, or electric tax on electric car drivers and hybrids. So if you really wanted to get people away from driving cars onto public transport, we really could do with lower prices. But in the meantime, people can't rely or afford it. So we have to have electric vehicles because you want to be sustainable. But now there's an extra tax going on top of that. It can go really deep and technical with all of it.
What do you think, getting away from transport, what do you guys think about the kind of visitor or resort, not resort, but regional levy that we understand that regions can now put on for, I don't know, bed tax or whatever. I don't know quite what
Well,
the
it's better known as
terminology
a
is.
tourist tax now, isn't it? And there's quite a few countries. I think Vienna has one. If you're going to stay overnight in Vienna, I think you have to pay a tourist tax there. So it's not unheard of.
No, but what will it? What do you
It's
think it will do in this country, which is already, um, well, what do you think it'll do?
if it's business tourism, I would suggest it disadvantages the smaller business, doesn't it? Because the big corporates will pay for their people to go to things, events, meetings, conferences, pretty much whatever until it gets to a squeak point. But the squeak point of affordability is far lower for SMEs. And if you look at the distribution of business in the UK, it's predominantly SMEs with a few big corporates and big multinationals sitting on top. So it just feels like it's a kick to the small business operator again, whatever it may be. It's punching down again, and
Yeah.
again, I you know that this could invite all manner of horrors, but if you look at some of the big international corporations that are making large multi-million pound turnovers in the UK and paying zippity doo-dah in tax, that needs to be addressed before we start sticking visitor tax on and things like that. We're kind of kicking the bottom end of the economy that can drive growth. But when there is the opportunity, and again, one particular coffee chain who I won't name for fear of getting sued, there was an economist talking about how that they haven't paid tax in 5 years or something because they pay royalties for the brand to a holding company in a low tax environment. So that wipes out their UK profit. So therefore they're a break even or net loss making organization. And then somebody turned around and said, well, if we do tax them, they'll leave. Great joy. Then how many little markets then suddenly open for local coffee shops to start? You know, it's the bottom end of driving the economy. And you can take that analogy and morph it across multiple markets. But it just seems again that it's those who have the least seem to be giving the most again.
Yeah.
And I don't think the tourist tax, if you go down to Devon and Cornwall, but they're struggling. I was doing economic development work down there 30 years ago, and the cost to go and stay in Devon and Cornwall is more than to go for Greece for a week. So if you add then a tax on, then how's that going to attract people into tourist locations? It's crackers. And you go to Devon and Cornwall. I loved living down there, but the clouds used to drag the backsides across our house every couple of weeks. So it is where it is. It's stuck out in the Atlantic, so it is a moist grey climate. Whereas if I go to, I don't know, Crete, the chances of me seeing a cloud in the summer are fairly slim. And it's, do you sit with your kids inside a cafe looking at the rain pouring down, or are you on a Greek beach watching them having fun? Those little things, and that's consumer tourism, but business tourism is going to be the same. You guys probably remember the great exoduses that used to disappear. What was the golf spa resort in Spain that everybody used to go to about 10 years ago? Because it was cheaper to fly everybody to Spain on a Ryanair or EasyJet, stay in the golf resort, have the conference, play golf, fly back.
Yeah. Okay. It will come to me in a minute. Yeah.
Well, I've heard that story several times, that it's cheaper to fly all your people into Spain, have your meeting there, come back, and you would have money to spare as well. Because it's just
Manga.
silly.
La Manga, that's the one.
That's it. Yeah, the manga.
Because I have to confess, I went on a client's do out to La Manga.
Yeah.
And it was like a mini holiday, and also there's a tremendous mind shift in how people behave as well, and how receptive they are to things, and the team building element. There was so much more to it, so much more value than going and sitting at a UK stately home in the fog and the rain, and wondering how long you were sitting in traffic trying to get home.
Well, the only reason you do that is if you're searching for Poldark, as we did with our American friend that said he must be down here somewhere. Yeah, and she got me to drive down all of these tiny little B roads and said, "Oh, this is exciting." And I'm thinking, no, not if a dirty great combine comes around the corner and I've got nowhere to go. That's not going to be fun at all.
Combines and parades of caravans, all driving slowly. I've had that in Norfolk. I used to be a field service engineer, and at certain times of the year, you would be driving around Norfolk to get to the place where you're going to do the repair work. And there's like half a mile queue because there's like 3 caravans ahead.
I'm just thinking, some of just a thought occurred to me. We sit here like 3 grumpy old men pulling things to pieces.
Well, we are.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's it. Maybe I'll go through a rebranding process and just call it 3 grumpy old men.
But there's an element of a lot of things that we discussed where there's some real practical stuff that we could feed out. Is there an opportunity now to look back at the first series of This Week in Events and see if we can put together a manifesto that says, here's a whole bunch of things that with some serious consideration could be very positive for the industry. So rather than just sit here and pull other people's efforts to bits, we actually put something back into the market that says, here you are, guys, here's a whole bunch of ideas we discussed, talked about, had different people pitching in on. You can throw it in the bin, but you might find a germ of an idea that you could use.
Well, our last episode is going to be on the 12th of December because we all need to take a break. So maybe we need to develop a white paper that's 10 things you've got to stop doing and 3 things that vaguely might help.
Yeah, we could do that. And then we could talk about all of that. And I think that's what the idea of these things is, we throw in the odd nugget here and there. You're right, we do moan, but that's what happens. But also, when we're talking about things like transparency of awards, and be on the lookout for scammers, and if you're going to do a rebrand, and if you're going to invite new people into your trade show, then we hope that we are giving out some useful little things that people can go, oh yeah, actually, I'll just do the opposite to that. Or I'm an exhibitor, I need to know that the organizer doesn't, I can't just rely 100% on them. So yeah, we could bring out some snippets for sure. Great idea.
Definitely. If anybody listening wants to add their penny's worth, leave a comment wherever you listen or see a mention of this episode, because your feedback's good. But yeah, little article or 2, just things you need to be thinking about. I think it'd be cool. Well, we'll have to get the whole team under that. In the meantime, next year we'll launch 3 Grumpy Old Men, and if we could all sort of like convene every Friday in Spain, that'd be cool.
At the Manga, yeah, that sounds where we're heading.
Yes. So in between golf strokes, we'll be discussing hot topics within the industry.
If we're having to do this as golf on a podcast, it will be the longest podcast in history. If I'm playing golf, I am absolutely abysmal. I'm not sure the budget and the cost of lost balls.
I'm gonna take issue with that because every time I'm on a golf course and somebody says those very magical words that you've just said, the very next thing they do is they tee off and it's amazing, and then they're gone for dust, and you think, hold on, so you're not rubbish at all. You're really you're very good. You're just giving yourself that little space.
I will confess, Paul, the few times I've played, I can hit the ball straight and a long way, and that's off the tee, on the green, wherever. Being able to vary it is impossible. 2 to the green, then 420 to go to putt. That's my golfing ability.
Well, Every shot was perfect. Excuse me. Every shot was perfect, providing the putting the ball in through a windscreen of a car in the car park was the aim.
Yeah, I didn't say
I
which
just
direction straight, did I?
no. I mean, just before we do go, years ago, my wife, she bought me this lovely uh golf experience down in Oakhampton. And so we were living in London, we traveled down to Oakhampton, and it was a weekend kind of passing that you could do. And she booked me in for a green tee off time. I think it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And it was just me. So I wasn't playing with anybody else. I was a solo golfer and I was pretty new to it. And I rocked up at the first tee and for some reason was running late. No surprise there, nothing really changes. But anyway, behind me, I've got all of these people that are, coming on their tee times and they're probably due to go. And I'm there holding everyone up. And the very first thing that you have to do is go past this lake, which is on the right hand side of the fairway. And what did I do? First ball, slosh, bang, in the lake. And I've got these people going, I'm not saying too much, but saying enough. And I'm feeling the balls, the pressure is coming into the back of my head now as I put up the second ball. And it goes, splosh. I thought, oh, right. So now I've got to yank it to the left. And that's what I did. And the third time lucky, I actually got off and I literally ran down this course. My wife was with me as well. We were chatting. And then I managed to get through it. But I will always remember that was not the most defining part of my golf career, I have to say, because, two in a pond off the first tee with about 10 people behind you is not really the look that you want.
And that's why you've never touched it again.
And I think on that note, I'm going to say those immortal words. Thank you, everybody, and cut.
This Week in Events is a production for EPN Journal and supported by patrons. Riverlink doesn't just deliver PR and social media marketing, its team becomes an extension of your organisation, taking the time to understand your business, your audience and your goals, ensuring every campaign is built on insight, strategy and creativity. They are known for exceptional results, building the right relationships, crafting the right messages and amplifying your voice to the right audiences. Huge thanks to our industry friends for their continued support and to you for listening.